So I have some time on my hands these days, which is nice. And there's a part of me that just keeps trying to figure out how to fill it. But I'm noticing, a certain amount of burnout that has been here and living in my body for years. And also, I think a lot of times when you have more space, things show up wanting to be seen. So you have more space to relax, or you have more space to do things, and parts of your experiences bubble up. They want to be seen, they want to be integrated. And so I'm noticing that that's happening. And I was saying to somebody, I was noticing that my nervous system has been more on edge than I would expect it to be in certain ways. And I think some of that has to do with just the pandemic and the state of the world. And some of it has to do with my own burnout and other things. But, so things are coming up, things are wanting to be seen. I've been using a lot of the practices I know and I've taught for years, and that's so wonderful. It makes me feel really lucky to have it. I was saying in a class that I've really been paying a lot of attention to my back body lately. And so I noticed this kind of, I don't necessarily want to call it a dysregulation, but probably a normal response to the amount of cuckoo that's been going on in the world. And, often grounding practices take me into my feet or into the legs or hips or something connected with the earth. And I'm noticing right now that's what's been feeling really good is going into the back body. And so feeling the back of the body, standing, sitting, lying down, doesn't matter. And then feeling out into the space and the area behind that, really starting to have a greater proprioceptive awareness of the space behind. And my experience of that is that there's something that becomes very settled in my nervous system. I think we're so forward oriented because these eyes are in the front of the body, but there's also something really grounding and settling about having a sense of what's behind. And so I was sharing this with a group of teachers, and one of the teachers, who's also a therapist, said she was teaching a yoga class where the asana was looking back and, really letting people orient to the fullness of the space around them. And so I like that from a visual sense. And I think that's awesome and a good place to be. And also I'm just really diving into the felt sense of that. So what is the felt sense of the back body, and what is the felt sense of the space behind? And can I sense into, like right now, the wall behind that, and just really have a greater 360 field of attention or awareness to what's around and what I'm feeling. And so I've been practicing that, and that's been feeling really good. I also always practice going outside. Nature is like super soother. And two, I've been noticing with this space, and probably partially my age and the transition in job, that that other things have been kind of bubbling up or wanting to be noticed. And it's been really interesting to, I don't want to say there's a split here, but it's been interesting to look at it in terms of the story. So, there's the story of whatever was there, whatever happened, or, whatever it is. And a lot of times it's a rerun of something. And so being with the story, seeing what wants to be met there, and noticing if it's just historical, noticing if it's a way that I am creating an identity around this story. But also even if and as I do that, and even if and as there is maybe a disidentification with the story, or an ability to witness the story and not become the story, there's also a knowing in me that there is a somatic element. There really is. And so I was reading a book some months ago talking about the consciousness in each cell, and really just interested in that, this consciousness in each cell. If each cell has consciousness, or since each cell has consciousness, What is it? And this is going to sound probably bananas, but I'm so curious about it. What is it? Or the exploration right now for me is, hi, Brittany. The exploration for me right now is, what is it like to be in relationship with each cell in my body? And so as these stories arise, or wanting to be seen from the past, knowing that there's this cognitive level, there's this cognitive layer of what's happening there, and maybe an auto response to that, or a falling into identity. But also then, like, I have practices and I teach and I have experience with somatic experiencing, and there's so much power in that. I think, I've gained so much understanding and knowledge and peace through different forms of somatic experiencing. And right now, what's super interesting to me is just like, can I be in relationship with the consciousness in each cell? So the cell that was awake or receptive during different challenging experiences or good experiences, who knows what it is. But for right now, since I'm talking about nervous system kind of dysregulation, if I'm with this more challenging experience and then dive into the somatic experience of that, and then dive more deeply into the cellular knowing in that, what is it like to be in relationship? Maybe first with the organ, the muscle, the kidney, whatever it is, wherever the experience is taking me, and then kind of deeper and deeper into that, more fundamentally, what is the cellular knowing? What is it like to really be quiet and be in a relationship with kind of the cellular consciousness? And I don't know. It's a new kind of exploration for me. And so I'm super, super curious about it. And, at some point it turns into almost a meditation on expansion and contraction or vibration, which for me really is a gateway into impermanence. And I'm interested in that. I really, I love those as practices. And, I feel like they're pathways into truth. And also, there's something about unwinding trauma in my body. And so, I'm not so interested in the stories right now. I mean, like, I've been over the stories. I know the stories. And I know the parts of me that are identified with those stories, or the places that can, arise and become around those stories. But, what's it like to attend on a cellular level to the consciousness that was or is potentially vibrating in a different way as a result of? Or, maybe another way to say that would be, I'm super curious what story each cell has. And I'm curious if some of these rememberings are arising from a longing in the soma, in the body, to be known and seen and felt. And so I feel like, I've done a lot of work around somatic experiencing and going in as whatever's arising is happening, feeling it, seeing it, being with it, like really exploring it in the fullness of my attention and awareness. And so this other exploration feels like a deepening curiosity, like what's under that. And maybe what it does all come down to is the openness and the emptiness, but there's something on the way there. I am just convinced, or maybe it's more that that's my experience, that, if here is kind of our everyday waking life and experience in the world, and then here is kind of like the subconscious, like we'll say the subconscious is here. So here's the everyday waking experience. Here's this world of subconscious where, there's imagery, there's knowings. I would say there are different energies and powers. There's this experience here. And then maybe under that is the ground of being, is the essence, is the the deep unicity. And so, I think that it all leads here. The meditations, they all end in a knowing of source at some point. That's where it's all pointing to, whether you're with the superficial body, with an organ, with the cell. But I also think that there are things to be known in that middle section, right? And so this exploration that I'm really diving into around being in relationship with the smallest particle, I guess I could say, the smallest tangible felt sense of somethingness and the story that might arise before experience of nothingness, or in combination with that. There's something there for me, and I feel like this nervous system weirdness that's in response to the last year and in response to burnout, it's like it wants to be seen on a variety of levels, and not just seen but felt. And so I don't know if any of you have experience with this, but like a deep dive into cellular consciousness. And as I'm saying this, there's a part of me that's like, all consciousness is consciousness. Do you know, like, there's no separation, it's the same. And also in that, what is it like to attend to, this is ridiculous, to a particle of consciousness that is vibrating in the frequency of Michelle, or is vibrating in the frequency of a historical event? What is it like to explore and be in relationship on that very, very tiny level? I don't know. So I'm curious. And as I was being with this earlier, in terms of like questions about how do you heal from trauma, or how do you nourish yourself after burnout, like what are the practices? And as I was saying, I have a lot of those, and I have a lot of experience with a lot of different ways of being with trauma, with being with burnout. And what's here now is it's like meditation. They say it's a many-faceted gem. It's like this is another facet of exploring an unwinding of exhaustion or trauma, or maybe just experience in the body. It doesn't have to be negative. I think I could probably dive in and probably will, to joy on a cellular level. What is the experience of joy? Which often for me is like almost an overwhelming effervescence. Like, what is it to experience that in a cellular consciousness? And gosh, what is it to heal on an individual cellular level? I'm so curious about this. All right, that's all I've got. I'm still thinking it through, but if you have thoughts on it, I'd love to know what's alive for you.